Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Mikhail, and we are going to wrap up this series that we've been doing in the Master Series of beginner information for chords. And we covered 1, 4, 5 chords. We covered the 1, 3, 5 finger positions. We've covered half steps and whole steps. We covered semitones and whole tones. And now we're going to wrap up with intervals. And we're going to talk about briefly what intervals are and how to find them and identify them on your keyboard. And then a little bit of information on this. This is all very light. It's not in depth at all. It can go much more in depth on every last one of those things and even more. There's a lot more to them. There's a lot more depth in them, and it requires a little bit more digging into the music theory and getting some deeper understandings of how these things work. And I encourage you to do that if it so interests you. We're just giving you a brief overview of all of it so that you have some basis to work with. So when we start getting more creative, you can actually understand a little bit of the verbiage, a little bit of the things we're saying. You'd be like, I remember that. I know what that means. So that's what that's all about. So we're going to do that. And before we dive into it, please do me a favor. Go ahead and like, subscribe, share, hit the bell icon so you know when I have new videos up. And I appreciate that. Leave me some comments. Let me know how things are going. And I really do appreciate those as well. All right. And there's my buddy back there, Tucker. He always comes into my sessions. He loves to hear the piano and just fall asleep in the corner. It's man's best friend. All right, guys. So let's dive right in. What are we talking about? Okay, so we're talking about intervals. And this is intervals specifically on your piano keyboard. Now, the reason I said that is because on other instruments, while we have intervals, they do work a little differently on some other instruments. You have to find them differently, and you'll have to learn them for that instrument, okay? So we are particularly talking about intervals on the piano keyboard, all right? So remember when we said that intervals were a measurement? Just like your half steps, your whole steps, your semitones, those are all measurements of a type on the keyboard to kind of give you where you are and what's going on. All right, they all have names. Everything has a name. All right, so we started with whole steps and half steps, right? You've got, always mute your phone. We have whole steps and half steps, okay? So whole steps, half steps. And we said that those are the movements. That's the literal movements, the literal distance of each movement. You either move a half step or a whole step. Then we said, now when you play those tones that go with those tones are semitones or whole tones, depending on if you're doing a half step or a whole step, right? Right. Okay, so then, believe it or not, all of that falls under intervals because an interval is a measurement. Just like, what's the interval between 1 inch and 2 inches? The distance between 1 inch and 2 inches is an interval. Those little measurements in between, 1/4, 1/4, 1/8 of an inch, those are all intervals. So everything has intervals. We just give them different names. So understanding that, this gets easy. All right, so let's take a look at this. And I'm going to have charts up the whole time so you can see the charts and follow along. The charts are showing you the intervals starting with one key from what we call tonic. So before we do that, let me give you this. Tonic. No, I'm not talking about gin and tonic or the kind of tonic that we had back in the old days, which was cough medicine because you were sick. I'm not talking about that kind of tonic. No, this tonic is the root or the first, okay, the number 1 of the scale. So in this case, When we're talking about tonic, we're talking about the root position, the anchored position, the number one position of the scale, the first scale degree. Remember, we call those degrees? We talked about that. The first scale degree of your scale is tonic. Now, that's important because all of these intervals we're going to talk about are based off of that tonic. They are the distance from the tonic to the key you're playing. Now, let me show you, and it makes a whole lot more sense. So, if we are playing in the key of C, and I use that because it's a simple key, I don't have to get sharps and flats involved, and it's just easier for demonstration. So let's do that. So in the key of C, that's your scale, your C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Also your scale degrees of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you go back to scale degree 1. Sometimes we will say 8, depending on what we're doing, but it is the octave. Okay, so according to your chart, if I hit all the different semitones, which means the half steps in between all of that, I'm going to include notes that are not in the scale. I understand that, but I'm showing you what they are. So that's why we're going to do that. Now, from here to here, C to this note is actually going to be C sharp, right? This note could also be D flat, depends on the key you're in. But from here to here is going to be, as we talked about, your half step. It's also one semitone, right? Semitone. So what's this one? If I just play this one, what is that? In the realm or in the measurements of intervals. What it is in the measurement and in the realm of intervals is called unison. Unison. It's just that one. It's unison. That's the distance. It's the same exact spot. It's unison. When I go from that spot anywhere else, I am now going in numerical order, either up or down the scale. If I go here, now I've gone to scale degree 2. Well, that's scale degree 2. So what is this one? If this is actually 2, remember we covered that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, or 8, right? If we covered that, then what's that? It can't be 2, but it is a 2. It's just a minor 2. Remember we talked about how some things were minor and some things were major when we talked about minor and major chords? Same thing here. It's smaller, so it's minor. Think of children. They're smaller, they're minor. Think of adults. They're bigger, they're major. If you use that analogy, it works pretty well. So a minor distance, a major distance, a half step, a whole step. Are you beginning to see the relation? A half step, a semitone, a minor distance, a whole step, a whole tone, a major distance, major second. So if I go from here to here, what am I playing now? I'm playing a, well, let's count it. 1, 2, 3. There's 3 keys. You see that chart tells you how many keys? That's what it's talking about. Physical keys on your keyboard. 1, 2, 3 keys away from my tonic. And I'm playing a, not a major third, because that would be here. Would it? Remember 1, 2, 3. That would be here. I'm playing a minor third. Right, a minor third. 1, 2, minor third. Minor second. major second, minor third, major third, 1 key, 2 keys, 3 keys. But notice my major third is technically 4 keys away from tonic if I'm counting all my keys. It's only 2 whole steps, but it is actually 4 complete keys away. All right? So you see that when you look at the chart there, it's telling you that my major third is 4 keys away. That's what it's talking about. We use that knowledge as we go up the board. Now, you see this only goes up to a certain place, but they can go beyond that. So here's where we're going to go. We're going to talk about the sound quality real briefly. Dissonance, and also we're going to talk about consonance. And what that's referring to is it's referring to the sound quality of the combination of those notes. So what is the sound quality? What does it sound like? Okay, that's what we're talking about. What does that sound like? Well, consonance and dissonance. So the first one we run into was this minor second and how that sounds. Whew, that sounds terrible. That is dissonance. You might say it's dissonance or harshness. It's grating, it's inharmonious, it's jarring. And some are more so than others. We're going to see that here in a moment. Then we go to your major second. It's also dissonant, if you listen. It's not as bad as this one, but it is dissonant, harsh, grating, inharmonious, grates on your nerves. Then we're going to go to the next one in line, and that is your minor third. Oh, wait. That's not bad at all. That's not too bad at all. That's actually consonant. It's harmonious. It has an agreement. It almost sounds melodic. Not bad. All right. That's what we call consonants. Now, there's deeper reasons why they're called that. You can see that when you look up some music theory, you get into all the deeper echelons of what that means. Then we have our major third. Oh, wow. Take a listen to that. That sounds even better. That's also consonant. And it's also 1, 2, 3, 4 keys away. 4 semitones away. That's not bad at all. That's very consonant, very agreement, very harmonious, melodic. All right. And then the next one, we do call it a fourth, but we also identify that as a perfect fourth. Why is it a perfect fourth? What makes it so perfect? Because it sounds perfect? Listen to that. Doesn't that sound nice? I can tell you that your perfect fourth and your perfect fifth also contains all of the little variation of sounds that are in this one. It has to do with hertz. It has to do with the number, the hertz range. There's a whole big thing. I recommend you look it up. I'll put this on the screen. It's called the Overtone Series. Overtone Series. I highly recommend you take and look up some of those things. It's very fascinating as to how all the tones of the piano and keyboard work together, how all these tones and why they work the way they do. It's very in depth, but it can be quite an interesting bit of knowledge for you. So for now, this is perfect fourth, or just fourth. We really don't call it major fourth, and we don't really call it a minor fourth, but it kind of fills those positions, but we don't call it that. It is a perfect fourth, or just fourth. The next one in line is going to be your, well, if this was fourth, then that means it's a, somebody said it. Yes, it's a minor fifth. That is correct. It is a minor fifth. This has several different names. Hear how bad that sounds? Ooh, yuck. That has terrible sounds. Look this up. We call this tritone. That's that tritone. Have you ever watched shows or where they have some suspense or something going on and you hear that? That's what they're using. They're using that tritone. It's a terrible sounding sound. In fact, it's called tritone back way back. Somebody had a sense of humor way back in the day, and they named it the devil's tone. They named it, yeah, it was something to do with the devil. It's the devil's music. They call it the devil's music because it's so bad. So it has some history behind it, but we call that a tritone. Reason it's called a tritone is because there's 3 whole tones in between each one. So there's a whole tone, another whole tone, and then another whole tone. So it's exactly 3 whole tones. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 semitones. All right. So it can be called a minor fifth. Typically it's called a tritone. It can also be called an augmented fourth. Augment means you're adding something to it, you're modifying it, you're raising it a little bit. So this is perfect fourth. I'm gonna augment it, I'm gonna raise it up just a half a tone, just a half a step, 1 semitone. And that's what that is. So this gets several different names, but it's all the same thing. Tritone, minor fifth, and augmented fourth, they're all the same thing. So you may see that in music or hear that. That's what it's talking about when that happens. Same thing with fifth. Oh, that sounds nice. And it's obvious that this was very dissonant and makes you jump out of your skin. Here's your perfect fifth. Sometimes we just call it a fifth. Again, we don't always call them major or minor, but it's just a fifth, but it is a perfect fifth. All right, has that nice harmonic melodious sound. All right, so there's your fifth. And how many notes, how many keys is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 keys from tonic, and you have a perfect fifth. All right, those measurements, those countings are important when you're looking to find these things or identify them. All right, again, it sounds pretty perfect. It just has that. Again, the overtone series will show you, there's some things about the hertz ranges and how those work out mathematically. It's all done on math, believe it or not. And that works out really good. So perfect fourth and perfect fifth have this harmonious perfectness to them with the tonic. These are some of the most used in Western music, in our music, those melodies. You're going to hear those, that used in our music more than anything else, I guarantee it. Subsequently, scale position, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember when we talked about playing 1, 4, and 5? Notice 1, 4, perfect 4, perfect 5, 1, 4, 5. We use that in our music all the time. In some fashion, it's going to be in there. I guarantee it. So when I was playing that earlier in the other video, I was playing scale positions 1, 4, 5, and I was playing octaves. That works, and now you know what it is. It's the intervals. It's those intervals. The 1, there's my perfect 4 interval, sounds nice. Perfect 5 interval, sounds nice. And it's moving on, going from perfect 5 to the next one is going to be perfect. No, it's not perfect. It's just minor 6. We stopped at perfect right here, and we have one more. So here we are. Perfect 5 or 5 or 5th, and then if that's 5, that's 6, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That means this is a minor 6. Now, let me say this. The scale you're in determines what your scale numbers are. I'm doing this in C, so it's nice, right up the scale, right up the white notes, no big deal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If I was in G, however, that would not be the case entirely, because the scale for G is what? I need this to make the scale, the major scale, correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 1. So the scale you're in determines what your numbers are going to be, what you're going to play for those numbers. All right, if I'm in A, and this is A minor, if I'm in A minor, sure, I can stay right there in A minor. But if I'm playing A major, do you see how many of these I had to play to do that? Now you see why I'm demonstrating this in C, so we can make this very simple for you. All right, so just understand that those numbers are going to, depending on what you're going to land on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to 1 or back to 8. So it's going to be different. So that's why we're in C for the demonstration. All right, I think you guys get the idea. If this is 5, then this is minor 6. This is major 6, right? Minor 7, right? Major 7, correct? And then perfect 8, or what we call octave, perfect octave. And of course, that's consonant. It sounds nice. That's very dissonant, makes you jump out of your skin. Yikes. That's also dissonant, makes you want to jump out of your skin. Yikes. But your major 6 isn't too bad. That's consonant. That's very melodic. Ah, it is actually consonant. Your minor 6 actually is consonant. It actually sounds melodic, but it's just got a slight air of dissonance, but it's not really dissonant. Okay, so those are some of your song qualities. And like I said, you can really get deeper into these things. There is a whole lot more that can be said about them. And when you get into the deeper music theory, you can really discover some things. And like there's more names that identify more things about the sound qualities and things like that. Of course, it gets very, it can get much, much deeper. You get a lot more information. That information is good to have, good to get. I recommend it. Do you need it necessarily to do what we're going to do and just be creative and muse? You don't have to have it, but it is highly recommended because it can definitely help you to purposefully do some things without doing them by accident and going, that sounds cool, what I do. I've done that. I mean, I did that. I would play something, but ooh, that sounds cool. I have no idea what that is, but that sounds cool. I can do that. I've done that. But it's very nice to do something and then think, oh, I know what that is. Or at least I know how to look it up and find out what that is. So that's very helpful, especially if you want to write it down so you can repeat it later. Yeah. All right, guys. So that wraps it all up. I hope you got something out of that. I hope it made sense. I hope this was good for you. Do like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to know when I put up new videos. Leave me some comments. Let me know how this is working for you. And I will see you on the next videos.